morning. I am I'm like not awake yet, honestly. uh yeah, I woke up like an hour ago, and I think I slept for like 10 hours or 11 hours. And here we are. I'm tired, but I've been doing stuff. There have been like two videos on the YouTube in the last 2 days. Uh, I'm streaming. I added a new point redeem for y'all who have copious amounts of channel points or are saving up uh, to put a message on the board behind me. So this can be changing. Uh, I put language slut on here since that came up on the other stream. But then if someone redeems it, they can replace everything as beautiful with a different short message of their choice. So that's kind of fun. Starts plotting. Good. Yeah. You already have enough to redeem it like 3 times. Yeah, and for those who don't know, the YouTube, my YouTube channel, yeah, I'm posting like videos on there now. And some of them are like this analysis stuff. It's just on YouTube and it's pre-recorded, and it has a slightly different tone because Twitch has a bit of that like chaos, I would say. And then I also posted like a video essay like ramble, and I think there will be more of that probably on the YouTube as well going forward. Um, Hi Nikki, hi Alekman, hi Haffy, hi Ray, hi Cabbage. Well, if it isn't our favorite incomplete Lotus, maybe Cabbage. I am complete in my incompleteness. Ever think about that? Maybe we are all complete in our incompleteness. My hair is wet right now, so it's like pulled back, and I think it's really like insufferable. I don't like how it looks, so I might just do wet hair down and suffer through wet hair on my shirt. Because I like having hair. Hi, Messier. Welcome. You're on my YouTube channel. How's book club plotting going? Oh, hair. I have it. That's great. I'm out of conditioner and need to get more, so my hair has been like genuinely weird and gross and like tacky. But I have it, and I like my hair. I posted a thing on my Substack. I posted like a really lovely flash fiction. Like it's actually probably my favorite prose I've ever written, and I'm gonna keep doing that. You saw the video and it was amazing. I am glad you liked it, Messier. It's a little bit of a different tone from the stuff on Twitch, which I think is kind of interesting, right? That it's sort of it's more focused, right? And I was very like not used to that way of doing analysis where I could really just like lock in on it. But then also kind of having to like explain my thought process to the camera. So I think those will get more natural and longer and more involved as it goes on. But I realized it's almost like learning an entirely new skill to talk to the camera without chat being there. Chat creates this like pseudo illusion of a listener, where the camera is like a camera, and it's weird, right? It is very weird. And then so that's also why I did like the ramble about art and being your own worst critic like the day before, because I wanted that practice of like just talking at the camera and it feeling natural. And I think I would probably be quite good at just rambling about art for minutes, dozens of minutes. uh I could probably sit in front of a camera and ramble about art for an hour if I had a good nugget in my head. Lots of helpful advice and suggestions. We'll be getting back into the poetry workshop to hammer out some edits. Hell yeah. But more importantly, did you have fun? Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it, and there will be more. I think it offers a good alternate modality to stream, gives me something different to think about and to focus on, and ultimately, hopefully puts all of this in front of more people, so I get more poetry and continue to become overwhelmed by the deluge of great writing that people send me. You're almost done rewriting chapter 2, Haffy. That's awesome. That's super cool. That's you're fast. Um, it's hard to write prose. It was hard for me to write my like 400 words the other day and put it online. Uh, Long time no chat. Do you still have the Discord? I figured I'd share my visual novel in there, even though it's like kind of rancid. Yes, the Discord still exists. If you're not in it, Nikki can re-invite you. Also, welcome, Bike Kiosk. It has been a while. And yeah, I want to play your visual novel, even if it is kind of rancid. By rancid, do you mean like it's like gore and like body stuff, or like sexual? Curious. I'm sure it's a great artistic statement because it's you, and I think you make really nice art. But you do have this kind of body horror thing that I remember you doing on a number of occasions. I think body horror poetry is really cool. Some of y'all really like that stuff, or writing that stuff in my chat, and it's really interesting. Not totally my thing. Maybe because I like revere the body and I revere the human body, but maybe that's where horror can enter when that body is damaged and destroyed. Maybe I should write more of that. That sounds fun. Like there's a zero chance you're streaming this because it is about grooming. Well, like Lolita is a book about a pedophile, and it's a wonderful, powerful statement of art. It's also not explicit in its writing. That's also one of my favorite books. Nabokov is an incredible writer, um, but it sort of investigates that character and shows his disgust and horror of this like human mind, and it's so well written. But uh, like that's a book that I think you could read the whole thing on stream and wouldn't have a problem, except I guess that it's not in the public domain. Although if you're like teaching and analyzing, you sort of get around that in a way. I don't know. But if it's like explicit and awful, then yeah, I'm not gonna read it on stream. I feel like I want to start. I mean, it's also like it is very explicit. Okay, then yeah. It is more Tampa than Lolita, but I was told it was a very humanizing story that depicts the abuse very respectfully. Cool. I think if you share it on the Discord, I will most certainly read it and appreciate that art on my own time. But yeah, sounds like probably in fact not something for the stream. I should play a game or read a visual novel on stream. Probably not today, Elect Man. I think we're going for like Ray and Nikki today. Returning to our roots of the stream OGs. Y'all are pseudo OGs. Play Date Everything. Okay. Maybe I need to create a like a list of recommendations for games to play on stream. Because there are a lot of visual novels and a lot of just poetic games in general. Yeah, Ishmael, you've been around for quite a while. Oh, and you've had something in the submissions for a bit. Uh, it's barely a game and a lot of reading. Yeah, I mean that's my favorite kind of game. Okay, I can't remember what day do you stream on weekends. I stream Saturday, so Friday, Saturday is the back to back. There are a ton of great new queer indie visual novels resulting from recent game jams. There's one that's scheduled to come out this month, which is called like Girls Make Money, that I put on my wish list on stream because it looks so incredibly queer and stylistic and weird, that I really want to play. I think it's called Girls Make Money. Um, but yeah, definitely just maybe I need to figure that out. Uh, because like adding more streams to like play games is definitely a commitment that requires some amount of like intentional planning out, right? And like I'm adding this stuff with YouTube right now, so that means, right, I'm adding things. Hard to add a lot of things at the same time, I think. But I think it'd be really fun. And I have this new sort of framework about life because I'm always catapulting my way through frameworks that get me through the day. You know, anything that gets you through the day that can help you like position the way you act within space and time. Those are useful. And this is just the framework of like work and play. And I basically said stream and the channel is work. And this is something that I want to be successful and to leverage so I can like be an artist full time because I really like doing this. And if it could support me, that would be dope. That's a lot of the motivation behind starting the YouTube, or like starting to do stuff on YouTube, right? And then the framework is so if I really want it to succeed, I'll make it succeed. Because for a while I was just kind of doing stream and stuff passively. Oh yeah, these are just index cards. I can explain why I have index cards in a second. That's actually a cool thing. Um, but I should work and I should work hard on the things that I want to succeed and I want to be work. And when I'm not working, I should play. Right. And play can be music and like rock climbing and my other hobbies and writing itself. Right. What this does is it alienates the artistic process of creation from being work because work is creating content online and then play is art. I had this issue for a while where I'm like, I'm an artist and that means I have to create. And then the pressure to create is like stifling. Right. So that's been a useful framework lately. And it also means like if I'm just like randomly killing time on Instagram, I'm like, this isn't playing, you know, this isn't fun and it's not work. So I shouldn't be doing this shit, right? I should either be like enjoying life to its extent or working, or I should be resting, right? The cards. I have a stack of note cards because I have a smaller stack of note cards. And these note cards have little things written on them. I might actually create a channel point redeem that's like draw a card. This is an idea that I have directly taken from Brian Eno, the ambient musician. I was listening to him talking on like an interview. And he said he has this stack of cards that like index cards that he writes little things about art on. And they're little like proverbs or bits of advice or little inspiring things to like break a creative block, basically. So when I've been coming to like sort of artistic realizations, I just write them down in the cards, and then I have this sort of like list of little wisdoms, I guess, that I've come to. So the most recent one is, if not working, play. But then there's art is beautiful for its secrets. That's something I said in the rambling video on my YouTube channel. There's you cannot be an honest critic of your own art, with parentheses, seek community, question mark, because other people can be honest critics of your art. Create a landscape in which others might live fully, freely in the landscapes of life. That one kind of was inspired by Heidegger talking about art as the creation of a world separate from Earth. uh, describe life so vividly it becomes a dream. So things like this that are just about the approach of art or the approach of an artistic life. And I'm just going to keep, putting those down and getting a larger and larger stack of cards. Maybe at some point it would be a cool thing to like publish, a deck of cards. People publish like tarot with their fancy art if they're artists, but maybe a deck of written art proverbs and then hire some artists to make art around them. That'd be kind of a cool thing, though I'm nowhere near having that quantity or quality of wisdom accumulated. But it's good because I come to these realizations as an artist, and if I don't write them down and keep them somewhere, then they are forgotten, right? And to forget, to fall into oblivion is no good. No good for the artist, at least. Maybe some people enjoy that. You're an anti-OG in general, Cabbage. You didn't even exist until a few months ago. Yeah, that's okay, We appreciate our new friends as well. Aphorisms. Yeah, aphorisms, proverbs, and they are what they are, right? I'm not big on words and definitions, as you know, Ishmael. But an aphorism, a tersely phrased statement of truth, an adage, a saying. Yeah, these are all the same word, basically, right? So yeah, my art aphorisms. Actually started my own little collection of poetic sounding one-liners yesterday. That's badass. That's super cool. Yeah, I think it's fun. I think it's a good thing to collect these little wisdoms or these little like funny things or these little beautiful sayings. It's nice. I had an idea, something I thought of recently for my poetry, because at some point here in my life I'm gonna publish a poetry collection, and I came to a title which I really am quite still quite bewitched by, and that is a collector of the extraordinary, right? And the way I frame that is through this, right? Everything is beautiful. This is something I actually think. That's why it's been on the board for so long. There is beauty to be found in like everything in the world. And then as an artist, I seek out those things which stick out as beautiful above beauty, right? The extraordinary beauty that goes somehow beyond just beauty. And in writing things down and in creating art, I am collecting those things. So that could be a title for a first collection, because that's very much just a statement on sort of how I see art as a process and as a philosophy, right? So that. My favorite one is, who sows ember will watch fire grow and harvest ashes. The only thing I will say, and I hate to correct words, is sows, S-E-W-S, is to sew with a needle and a thread, right? Like the patch on my pants here, right? Which is hard to see because of the microphone. This is sewed on. Sow, S-O-W, is to sow seeds, to cast something out into a field, which will then grow and be harvested. Understandable mistake with second language of English, unless you are trying to say so, but I think it just works better as S-O-W, right? Hello, Hayden Hart, welcome. I know you exist from like someone else's stream, or that you yourself are a streamer or something. I'm gonna click on your channel. You have 90 followers, so you probably stream. Yeah, Hayden Hart streams. Guys, go follow Hayden Hart. They also stream in writing. I don't know. Nikki, do you know how to shout someone out, or do I have to do it? I think it's like /SO and then their username or something. But hello, welcome, Hayden. And Nano, hello. I don't know if I said hi to you. You came in. Fee fi fo fum. Nano's here. You better run. Okay, I guess I'll end stream. Goodbye. If you like writing aphorisms, oh nice, you figured it out. Awesome. Am I following Hayden Hart? No. Okay, you got my follow. If you like writing aphorisms, try the genre of Greguerias. It was invented by Ramon Gomez in La Serna. It's basically humor plus metaphor equals Gregueria. Gregueria. That sounds like gregarious. I wonder if there's a etymological connection there. This is awesome. I love when I look something up that is like so obscure for English that it gives me first the thing in Spanish, right? Gregueria. In Spanish and Latin America, short statement, usually one sentence, philosophical, pragmatic, or humorous idea, similar to aphorism or a one-liner. I want to work humor into my writing, so maybe this would be a good thing to study. Examples of Greguerias by Gomez de la Serna. El par de huevos que nos tomamos parece que son gemelos, y no son ni primos terceros. The couple of eggs we eat look like identical twins, and they're not even third cousins. The peacock is a retired myth. Doors get angry with the wind. Fragrance is the flower's echo. These are cool. Yeah, they're like, they have like a similar feel to haiku, that sort of small, poignant, philosophic, sometimes funny way about them. Hayden Hart is basically in every streamer who streams reading and writing. Well, now you're in another one's chat. Izani, it's the Messier crew hanging out here. Well, welcome. I'm glad so many people are coming over from Messier. These communities will be linked together through book clubbing and through a shared love of writing. If y'all want to see me reading one of Messier's poems, it just went up on my YouTube channel, which you can probably find linked somewhere. And they liked the video, so you might like the video. I don't know. You're in many, but not all of them. There are quite a growing number of us writing streamers. So, yeah. Do you see my scheduling messages earlier? I don't want to seem pushy. I think you were saying something about Wednesday, which is when I stream. Going forward, more flexible on Saturdays if that helps. Yeah, okay, good to know. You have next Wednesday off. Yeah, so maybe we can read yours on Wednesday. Yeah, for some reason, Spanish poets became obsessed with haikus during the mid-20th century. I mean, American poets had a thing too, where like the beatnik poets were kind of huge on haiku, except like Allen Ginsberg created a form, an offshoot of the haiku called the American sentence, which was a 17-syllable poem in a single sentence. I wrote an American sentence the other day because I heard about that form and thought it was cool. I don't know if I can find it. But I think that's kind of neat, right? The idea of the American version being just a single sentence said. That feels thematically appropriate in some capacity. Mine was, in the discomfort of my body, I know I must still be alive, which is 17 syllables, but just a sentence. I really like it. I think it's very cool. And then like Sonia Sanchez was writing like hella haiku, and she was a mid 20th century or maybe late 20th century American writer. So uh, I think it just that's probably when we started really like seriously translating and bringing over those traditions, right? Because post World War II, I'm guessing this is just hypothetical. America, the United States of America imperializes Japan, right? Economically dominates them, and then starts to adopt things technologically and culturally from Japan, right? Which was primarily closed off up until that point. This is just a guess. And then maybe there was a large surge in appreciation for that sort of media, right? And that's when I don't know. It's a guess. That could be totally wrong. And then that would have, of course, transmitted throughout the Americas, perhaps. Um, but I have no idea. Welcome in, Miss Puffies698. What are we reading today? What are we reading today is a great question. And Puffies, welcome. On this channel, I read people's stuff. They send it to me on Discord, and I like scribble all over it, and I talk about it. Poetry, prose, all of the above. Switching to a black screen so I can fix the webcam. It looks kind of like this, where I just like really dig in there to what's going on. Nothing planned. Nothing's ever planned, Nano. I figure out what to read from chat day of, moment of. I think I'm reading Ishmael. I might do Ishmael and Ray. I might have to delay Nikki. I feel like it's been longer since we've read Ishmael. That could be wrong. Because we read that Ishmael language translation poem. What was the last thing we read of Nikki's? Man, I get lost. I get lost in time and space sometimes. Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, it might actually have been... Yeah, it was Ishmael more recently than Nikki. Because we read Nikki's Swans poem. So, you say yay, and then now I'm going to change my mind. We're going to read Ray first. Ray, what do you have submitted to me that you would want me to consume and pick apart with my razor wit and will? Hardly. I think I want to do poetry. If you have anything poetic, translation, or original submitted, rather than an essay. Because I don't feel like reading prose at length. I think poets are wizards to create such beauty and depth with so few words. It's a tricky thing. It's quite the undertaking, but it's I find that I've had this thought before of like poetry as magic system. uh for like a fantasy setting, like the way I would love to like create an RPG where you were writing poetry in session to like cast spells. uh anyway, I think the magic of poetry and the access to that magic within you comes from an openness and a freedom to express beyond constraints previously known, right? To create in a manner that's sort of intuitive and subconscious, not governed by rules, but instead sort of outlined by them and like spasming in the space within. It's like being blindfolded in a padded room. And you just writhe about until something occurs. That's maybe a really bad metaphor. Turkish phrase for poetry is halal magic. I love that. Before me stand enemies all, with back against the wall, now cast fireball. Bow, 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 bow. Mixing our mediums here. Yeah. Snaps fingers like Roy Mustang. It depends a lot. Often the most classical poems, because they rely so heavily on sounds like lisping, repetition, baroque. You're just talking about stuff. You have a poem, Ray. What's it called? What is it called? Hi, Callie. I think I can like search by. Can I search? I don't know how to search. Does it have a name? What am I looking for? I had to go back to look in Discord. I have nadie le dijo que camino seguir, or no one told them which path to follow. And is that an original? And then a translation of an essay from an author I'll show on the book club. Okay, so we're definitely gonna go with no one told them which path to follow. No one. Yeah, I don't think the search function actually works in in the Discord. Oh, there it is. Okay, it just takes forever. Okay. Excellent. The prose poem is an original. Cool. Making my life difficult by sending a prose poem because the sentences or the lines are very long. Let me see if I can screenshot this in such a manner that it looks nicer on stream. There we go. Wait, I can do better. I can make the page smaller. Aha! Guys, I'm so smart. I hope you don't care too much about your line breaks. It's a prose poem, so I presume you don't. See, the trick is that I took Discord on my iPad and I just made the whole window smaller because you can like change the size of the application within the screen, and then I can get it more vertical so it looks better on stream. I'm so smart is the point of what I'm saying. And Ray, before we jump into this, do you have any questions about this? Any things you would like me to focus on? Any thoughts or guiding principles or themes? In which case I will focus on those, and if not, then I will just read it raw. That sounds, well, I don't know. That's fine. Okay. Let's line this up nicely, please. This needs to come here. This needs to go here. This needs to be bigger. And okay. We have a poem that is no longer zooming in. Guys, I hate this thing so much. Look at how it's like bugging out. I just want to be able to zoom in. Okay. We did it. Not sure what to ask. It was a birthday gift for someone. Oh, that's really beautiful. I've done poems before as birthday gifts. I'm not sure they're always like incredibly well received, but I still think it's fun to give them because it's one of the most meaningful things I feel like I can give someone is my art, right? All right, redeem hydrate. Thank you. I do need to hydrate. I haven't drank my water this morning because I just woke up basically. Okay. Cool. You had your visa interview today. That's awesome, Real Talk channel. I hope that went well. And if it didn't, I hope you're doing okay. Let's jump into this poem. This is Nadie lo dijo que camino seguir, or No one told them which path to follow. I will be reading this in the English version. because I don't know Spanish well enough to understand. I just know Spanish well enough to read those words and pronounce them okay. If I read it badly, I wouldn't be in stream. I don't know. There's some logic to doing badly and coming into a random. I guess I'm not a random Twitch stream. You've been in here before. Coming into a Twitch stream to like rant about it. That seems reasonable, right? No one told them which path to follow. I'm glad we're reading a prose poem because I'm trying to write a prose poem right now. For those who don't know, prose poetry is poetry that takes the poetic form, tries to do all the evocative, metaphorical, whatever things of poetry, but it does so through the actual medium of prose, full sentences, the sort of writing that we get in novels and those kinds of spaces. I think prose poetry is not very well known and not very appreciated, in my opinion. And for the people who are writers of prose, right, for our novelists, for our short story smiths, for our fanfic writers of the world, I think prose poetry can actually be a great approach to getting into the medium of poetry itself, because you are using something you already have skill in, right? Prose. And then you're saying, how can I make this sort of poetic, evocative, vague, that kind of thing? And so I think it, of course, we can look at the name. It acts as a nice bridge. As a similar point, right, we have poetic prose, its foil, its mirror, which is prose written very poetically. And this might be our Gabriel Garcia Marquez. This might be our... I think Nabokov, his prose can be very poetic. I think any of the magical realists, really. I think, Allende, right? Isabel. So these are good ways to approach poetry from the prose perspective. What's a foil? It's like a foil in a narrative is like your sort of enemy or rival, or like in a story, it's like a narrative counterpart, and they sort of play off of each other. So it's sort of like a pseudo opposite that's connected. Thanks always for how you explain things. Absolutely, Cizik. I try my best. Did not expect an Isabel Allende name drop today. I be name dropping authors, although I haven't actually read Allende. I will be clear. She is my dad's favorite author, pretty much, or in his top 5. My dad likes Allende, Marquez, John Irving. I don't know who else are his favorites. Definitely those 3. I know he really likes... there's an American author, Dave Eggers. My dumbass heard Allende and went the ex-president. And that's why I said Allende, and then I'm like, oh, Ray's going to think the president. I need to say Isabel. So I need to read her. There are a bunch of her books in our house, and I just haven't gotten to her yet. So aluminum foil is the foil to plastic wrap. Yes, Callie, that is beautiful. They are foils. Lorca is Lorca the poet is one of my favorites. That's a good choice, Cizik. I haven't really read any Lorca, but I'm sure Ray could start going feral about Lorca and his writing in chat, just because I think Ray knows way more about South and Central American poets than I do. I would love him. Yeah, I bet I would. I just need to keep reading stuff. I read all this contemporary poetry. Anyway, No One Told Them Which Path to Follow by Ray. There is In the darkest heart, a small creature whom winter gently persuades. They fold their trembling beneath the moss, lower their head upon the earth's dim warmth, and surrender their eyelids to the slow ministry of sleep. The frosts enamel the branches with a goldsmith's patience. Water polishes the stones. The roots, blind and steadfast, continue their silent pilgrimage into the depths. Lichens write upon the bark of the old trees. The little creature knows nothing of these ceremonies, nor do they know whether the forest has forgotten them. They sleep, for there is a kind of weariness that asks only for rest. And yet, when the snow withdraws with the discretion of an old guest, the forest seems to breathe in another way. A tiny creature returns to the place that has always belonged to them. The whole forest blossomed with their return. That's beautiful. What a lovely little self-contained just moment, right, in space and in time, and in this beautiful forest. uh it had, it certainly feels like we are metaphorically pointing toward a lot of things. And there's a lot going on here in this very small space. I feel like half of the words you use are just so rich, and the other half are like prepositions and specifiers. Whom winter gently persuades, right? Trembling beneath the moss, earth's dim warmth, surrender their eyelids, the slow ministry of sleep. Just so much life, right, breathing in and out through this poem. Something I underlined just as I was reading was ministry, pilgrimage, and ceremonies, right? This poem feels very reverent, right, to what is going on. There is just a love for nature and this process in here. And I think the use of these religious terms, the ministry of sleep, the pilgrimage into the depths, these ceremonies, kind of reminds us of the holiness here. I felt that poem. Who wrote it, Cizik? This was written by Ray, who is in Twitch chat right now. Ray Mondu. You have a number at the end, right? 96. Yeah. Witchcraft. Yeah, it definitely has some of that in the reverence of nature. Some might go from that place to a sort of pagan spirituality or Wicca, or even things like indigenous faiths that are focused on nature and the land and all of that. But in a sense, really, there's a magic in this poem, just in what is, right, in the scene, in the place itself. I want to read the whole thing again, partially because it's so beautiful, and I think I could read this just again and again and just bask in the feelings. But I want to find something to start to unpack and pick apart the layers of this poem, because I think this, in a way, is very like impenetrable, because it creates its little scene inside of itself so well, right? Um, and sometimes it can be hard to dive into one of these beautifully self-contained established scenes and try to like truly, understand them in any capacity. I think the title, right, might help us kind of unlock some of the meanings that we can create in this poem. not that we even need to, right? Like the words themselves are so rich. They're like they're like that dark black rich soil full of like worms and stuff. They're like it's like a compost bin. Anyway, no one told them which path to follow. There is, in the darkest heart, a small creature whom winter gently persuades. They fold their trembling beneath the moss, lower their head upon the earth's dim warmth, and surrender their eyelids to the slow ministry of sleep. The frosts enamel the branches with a goldsmith's patience. What a line. Enamel the branches with a goldsmith's patience. It's just so. Ugh. Water polishes the stones. The roots, blind and steadfast, continue their silent pilgrimage into the depths. Lichens write upon the bark of old trees. The little creature knows nothing of these ceremonies, nor do they know whether the forest has forgotten them. They sleep, for there is a kind of weariness that asks only for rest. And yet, when the snow withdraws with the discretion of an old guest, the forest seems to breathe in another way. A tiny creature returns to the place that has always belonged to them. The whole forest blossomed with their return. So, the imagery is gorgeous. The imagery is it's candy. It's better than candy. It's a rich fruit, right? It's a peach, just like the juice dripping down your chin, sweetness like overwhelming, like perfect texture, lovely. um so as I was reading that time, I was thinking about the title, and I was thinking about the them and the path that they follow, right? Sometimes, to understand poetry, oftentimes, right, we can read it through the lens of one part of the poem, right? And so we can think about, okay, this is a poem about something following a path. So I was asking myself during that time, what is them and what is the path? And what I noticed, right, is in all of these beautiful stillnesses of the forest, right? The frost, the stones, and the roots and the lichen, there is motion, right? Everything here is taking a path, right? We have the frosts enameling the branches, kind of taking this natural path, covering these things. And each of these motions, is described with like the utmost detail, right? With a goldsmith's patience. The water polishes the stones. So again, we can think of the water running down, slowly eroding these things away over and over. The roots, right, tunneling downward. The lichen writing upon the bark of the old trees. And, we can think about these things, right? The frost kind of appearing and spreading across, the water kind of going down and across things. We have the roots tunneling down deeper, right? And we have the lichen, maybe riding up and across, vertical, expanding. We have, the snow withdrawing, kind of shrinking back in all directions. And these things just occur, right? These things just unfold on their path, right? Kind of over and over again with no instruction, right? No one told them, and no one told the small creature, right, that it would lay down in the forest as it started to get cold, and fall into this deep hibernation, right? To the slow ministry of sleep. Such a lovely line. And no one told it that it would return, right? And these cycles would all kind of, line up in these beautiful ways, seeming that the whole forest blossomed with their return. Uh and it's just lovely. Something I think about then, which is very interesting, right? We can read this poem through the motion, and we can read it through the path, but I think we also necessarily, owe it to ourselves to look at this poem through the eyes of the creature, right? We spend a more time really on the creature than on any of the other imagery, which is so beautiful, right? Because I think this world is something we are seeing through the eyes of this thing. It's our character, right? And just like in prose, and we're doing prose poetry, but even in poetry itself, something that can help readers is to be able to see a work through the eyes of a character, something or someone personified that we can empathize with, that we can place ourselves in. Uh, and I think this creature also potentially we can become it, or it can become us, right? We can probably read this creature as us, but we can also read it as the literal, little mouse or fox or whatever, or a baby bear. um, I wanted to do something between the natural description and the person it was dedicated to. That's why I didn't call it a forest at first. Yeah, it's interesting, right? We start with this little creature, and we're saying whom, and we say they fold their trembling, right? And that doesn't sound like, we can think of trembling hands or trembling paws, but at the end of the day, we're not told that, right? So it can be any part. It's just that their being is trembling, right? Uh, and then lowering their head, right? Any creature that we can probably relate to has some sort of head, and and they have eyelids, right? So this all very well can be human, but this can also be a little forest creature of any kind. And I think that's one of the things about poetry. I guess using prose poetry to talk about prose and poetry, uh, it is vagueness that can give poetry a lot of its beauty, or the secrets, the things to be uncovered, like that distinction, or the question of, is this an animal or is this a person? Wherein, like, straight up prose, you might find yourself, frustrating your reader, right, by being too vague, because prose itself, in a very, novelistic sense, wants to have a clarity to communicate its story. But poetry can really revel in that vagueness. And I think prose poetry occupies this special place where, when you choose to be vague within a narrative structure, you open yourself up to, like, these expectations of the reader of wanting the story to unfold in a certain way, and then being able to subvert the idea of how stories are maybe traditionally begun and concluded and all of that. So I think this really makes lovely use of the prose poem as a form. Um, but, right, so we have our creature, and they sort of sink down into sleep in the winter underneath all of these things. Winter does its beautiful thing, and then we return, right? And we sort of know nothing, right? It says, the creature knows nothing of these ceremonies, nor do they know the forest has forgotten them. They sleep, for there is a kind of weariness that asks only for rest. And I think, for a creature itself, this, makes plenty of sense as as a narrative, right? They fall asleep, the forest continues on its cycles and on its path, and they sort of become nothing when they are not acting in this world. And then they return. And I think what's interesting, right, about this poem to me is the last sentence. The conclusion is really, I mean, the whole thing's interesting, but the conclusion is absolutely striking to me, right? The whole world, the whole forest blossomed with their return. And there's such there's almost like a really poetic solipsism to this. Solipsism is a philosophic idea that the entire world only exists in your own mind, right? And sort of your mind and its perception is the cause behind the world, because when you die, the world is going to go away, the world as you know it. But it sort of goes to the extent of saying, like, there will be nothing, and there was nothing before and after. And I think there's some of that sentiment in this final line, right? That almost the feeling of, like, they returned, and it was with that action of waking up that the forest blossomed. And there's something very human about this sentiment, right? I mean, solipsism is something that really only humans engage in, as far as we know. But this idea that, like, my seeing, my waking up, my action is the thing that kind of springs this beauty into existence, right? Or that if something is not seen, it sort of cannot hold this, it cannot hold this beauty, right? Because beauty sort of exists, right, within, right, the eye of the beholder. It is that action of seeing that gives rise to beauty. So, right, I think that feels to me like a way we can see the interaction of knowing nothing and the forest, right, forgetting them, and then them returning. I think what's interesting about this solipsism of, we'll say, the mouse, I'm just calling it the mouse because that's kind of how I see it, though it's a creature, is that the forest is also an observer, right? The forest is also an actor or an actress in this play, right? And maybe each one of these things, right? The frost is made alive with its goldsmith's patience, and he sees the world through his perspective. And the water, as she comes down polishing these stones, lovely interaction with the goldsmith's patience, right? One is working metal, one is polishing fine stones, right? A lovely, like, thematic connection there. And then we go from stone to the depths, right? And then we go from pilgrimage of the depths to writing, which, I feel there's a literary idea of this pilgrimage and going deeper into something. Lovely way we, like, flow through those ideas. But the roots, right, they are blind and steadfast. They almost feel like justice here. But again, they have a perspective and they have a feeling, right? They are alive in the way that they can have a pilgrimage. And the lichen, of course, she can write. She can do this human thing. So each of these things within this poem become, like, not a passive object, but an active observer and a member of this play, right? And so it goes sort of in parallel, right? That for every one of these things, when it decides to rest, when it withdraws, right, with the discretion of an old guest, it is forgotten, right? Winter is forgotten in summer, and summer is forgotten in winter. And 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 it almost means that, right, like we have this constant cycle of change, right, that is broken up by the end of each thing, where there's like a causality of the world that is continually like being forgotten. And like this part does not remember this part of the cycle. It only remembers what was immediately before and after. So we get these like breaks in existence, which are the breaks in the things we cannot see, the things we cannot understand, right? Uh, in the times when we rest, right? When we must just like withdraw and sort of cease to exist, the slow ministry of sleep, the the weariness that asks only for rest, right? The sort of pure, empty, dreamless sleep. I love that this sleep is dreamless, because the world itself is like the dream in this poem. You know, winter is the dream, that the mouse is not dreaming here, I think. And that's just lovely. Uh, it makes me wonder, right? All of this, the fact that this is a poem about a person, right? You wrote this for and about this person. Uh, and it makes me think of, what this person is like, whether they are someone who withdraws for some time but always returns, or whether they are someone who appreciates these sentiments of, if this is what this poem was meant as, which it could be meant as something entirely different, but appreciates the natural in this way, appreciates the cyclical and the causal. Um, I wonder, right? Me, who is writing about solipsism at the same time as this poem. Oh, fuck, they're on to me. I'm getting pretty good at this, aren't I, Ray? Not that being good at analysis is finding the thing that the author was intending. I do not think that is our goal. But I think maybe that also means that reflects really well onto your writing, right? If solipsism was something in your mind and you express something and those similar sentiments are being drawn from it, that's certainly something right? We want our art, maybe some people, I want my art to be a mirror to my mind. So, pepperoni, I'm in my room, kind of lonely. Sprigatoni, got a sprig and named it Tony. Thank you for the beautiful verse. Our fortune teller here again. Maybe. Oh yeah, you did that whole coffee fortune telling poem. That one was sick. I really liked that. Um, man, this work is just rich. I'm gonna read through the whole thing again. No one told them which path to follow. There is, in the darkest heart. Oh, that's interesting, right? In the darkest heart. Um, that's something I didn't even process this, right? Wait. Okay, if the Ray. Okay. So the creature is in the heart, right? So we can place I mean, and I think we can say the heart, right? The heart of the forest, sure, right? We can say the heart of any place, but we can also say within our heart, right? And then the creature is in the heart, and if we are to personify this thing, then there's a creature in our heart, and that means that as a reflection of the creature being in the forest, right, the forest is also our heart, as we describe, right? So we have the heart, and inside the heart is the mouse, the creature. I'm just calling it a mouse. And then we have the forest, and inside the forest is the mouse. And by a sort of transitivity of poetry, right, we can equate these two things when the mouse is inside both of these. And then the forest becomes the heart, which means all of these other pieces of imagery can sort of be things within the heart, right? And then it's a matter of the rising and falling of emotions and events of the soul, and feeling and sentiment, and the lichen writing on the old trees can become a metaphor for memory, right? And the roots digging deeper, perhaps can be something of knowledge, and the polishing of stone, or like the frost enameling with goldsmith's patience, can be this, you know, like these can all surely be interpreted that as facets of ourselves, right? And when certain parts of us go to sleep and rest, other parts of us kind of rise and appear. And maybe even then it does come back to this idea of dreaming, right? In some way, and this like interplay of the conscious and the subconscious, and these, that's so cool. Wait, because like the creature in a way is made, I think, or it feels to me like me, right? But then if the forest is my heart, then it sort of says like there are all these facets of me that exist beyond myself, right? There becomes like this psychological feeling of like the creature as like ego, and then like it is existing in this vast forest, right, of like the subconscious, of the dreams, of the desires unknown, of like the creative force of the lichen, of like the aesthetic, like the aesthetic beauty of the frost, and the I don't know, like the sort of biological process of water smoothing stones or something. um we're creating like worlds within worlds that are like feasting on each other, um in this like circular, like I don't know, like loop, this strange loop, uh of like a Hofstadter kind of situation. This is crazy. I like this poem. If you couldn't tell. Yeah, that's what I said about not calling it a forest at first. Yeah, see, y'all are able to say things in chat that like explain stuff to me, and I will read it and just not understand what you're saying. And I think that's for the better. Much more satisfying to come back to that heart at that moment. Uh wow, okay, there is in the darkest heart a small creature whom winter gently persuades. They fold their trembling. And now the I can't even get through it. The creature can become like so many things, right? Whatever that part of ourself that is trembling, right? That gives way for the beauty, that gives way within rest, for like the beauty of dream, or gives way within really any situation of like oblivion. It could be like that artistic moment where the forest comes forth and the creature goes to sleep, um right? Whatever that trembling part is, like sort of creates a new reflection of what these things are. What caught me was, I'm like, what if that trembling thing is that child, right? Something that I talk about a lot is like that internal child, that thing like lost. It is trembling for the winter of adulthood when we learn to be patient and polished and to dig blindly toward new things, to have pilgrimage into knowledge and to write. And then as spring comes, as we gain this like emotional understanding, the child maybe returns from rest. The snow and the winter of knowledge kind of recedes, and we become blossoming again as we accept like the death of that sort of like egoistic desire and return to childlike freedom. uh um right. But that's just if you choose for the trembling thing to be that child, right? But you can choose for that trembling thing, or you can feel that that trembling thing is so many different parts of self, right? It can just be the waking mind giving way to dreaming. It can be um, probably lots of other things. I don't know. Callie hasn't been read in a long time, though it would be funnier to just ignore Callie and pick someone else. Y'all are so mean to Callie. You'll destroy the world. That'll be good inspiration for your dark fantasy, I think. Yeah, really like method acting. It's like you're becoming the evil overlord. Anyway, uh there is in the darkest heart. Okay, so I can't get through a sentence. The heart is dark, right? This is another thing that like adds like a level of interpretation to this poem where like the dark heart, right? Perhaps someone who is in pain, right? There is pain in our life and in our existence, and there is some trembling thing inside that, right? Whom winter gently persuades, right? As though the dark heart is that of like suffering or grief or hopelessness or depression, right? And then this creature exists, and it is like some hopeful, joyful thing. And maybe in some way, as like a reflection of that, we can understand that there is beauty in this cold and in this darkness, right? And then, but also that thing comes to an end, and we reemerge into like hope and joy and optimism as the snow thaws and the creature returns and the world is blossoming again, right? So like there's like a reading of this as something about depression and joy and hope, right? In the same way of like an Emily Dickinson. Hope is a thing with feathers, right? Hope for in this poem could be the small creature whom winter gently persuades, and it tries to pull them back, right? And hope does surrender sometimes and falls asleep, and it has to rest. It can't exist all the time, but then it returns. And I just love this idea of something that cannot, some part of ourself and every part of ourself as something that cannot exist all the time, right? The hope and the winter and the patience and the polish and the steadfast and the writing, right? All of these things exist in that same natural cyclical way because like we are animal, right? We are nature subject to all of these same forces, and within us are forests and worlds and ecosystems of thought and memory, and there are seasons of self, you know. That's a good line. Seasons of self. Someone can use that as a writing prompt. uh, yeah, this poem gives me the same sense of nostalgia as some of the old English poems like The Wanderer and The Seafarer. even though it's more comforting than those. Yeah, the all those English poets tended to be pretty dreary because I guess that's how England is. Uh, they don't get very much sun up there, so they are left to wander and seafare and be depressed over gunmetal waters and stark white cliffs and yeah, rain clouds and fog and like I don't know, a gross like shit-filled London of the 18th and 19th and 20th centuries. Yeah. I don't know how London is now, but yeah. Some of them were funny. Shakespeare was funny. Anyway, there's that other guy, like Edmund Spencer or something. That's totally not his name. Uh, the Fairy Queen or something. That's like a beautiful work. I think he was British, English, whatever. Anyway, uh, there is in the darkest heart a small creature whom winter gently persuades. I love how winter is gentle. Everything is gentle. Everything is beautiful. Like, it's all beautiful in this poem. They fold their trembling beneath the moss, lower their head upon the earth's dim warmth, and surrender their eyelids to the slow ministry of sleep. The frosts enamel the branches with a goldsmith's patience. Water polishes the stones. The roots, blind and steadfast, continue their silent pilgrimage into the depths. Lichens write upon the bark of old trees. The little creature knows nothing of these ceremonies, nor do they know whether the forest has forgotten them. They sleep, for there is a kind of weariness that asks only for rest. And yet, when the snow withdraws, and with the discretion of an old guest, the forest seems to breathe in another way. A tiny creature returns. A tiny creature returns to the place that has always belonged to them. The whole forest blossomed with their return. So, and yet is such a great phrase in any poem. Oh, absolutely. Something the thing that caught me on that read, a tiny creature returns, which is not notably, or it does not have to be, the same small creature from before. One is maybe this creature has grown smaller, right? In winter, it has become thin and small in its rest, and it has sort of shed some of itself. But also, we just say a small creature, and then we refer to them and them and they and them. And then a tiny creature returns. And there is nothing forcing us to read this as the same one. Right? There's nothing forcing us in this poem to say that what has gone into this place of warmth and safety and darkness is the same thing that's coming out to see spring. And I mean, that works so well in any of the understandings, the translations of this that we choose, right? If it is dreaming, then one dreams and comes back something else. If it is hope, then hope gets pushed down, and then maybe a different hope emerges, or a hope that has a new understanding or a new shape to it, right? Right, and we have it in the Spanish too, right? Un pequeño animal and una criatura diminuta, right? So this is a very intentional choice, obviously, to have a different phrasing here, and even we get creature both in the English one, but in this it is a small animal, right? Animal. And it is una criatura diminuta, so a, tiny creature. So then very clear in the language, right, that we are using different words from start to end. And this is why it can be so lovely to have access to the original. Because even if we don't know how to read all of these things, right, we can see that the words are different if we know some of the Spanish. And then I just love bosque. That's one of my favorite words in Spanish because of Neruda. The first poem I ever read in Spanish was Naciendo en los Bosques, maybe. When translating, I used they, them a lot because I wanted to be respectful of their transition. Oh, that's super cool. No one told them. So this can be a poem about transness. And then that coming out as a different creature, right, makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, Ray, and my dad asked me this once because he's fluent in Spanish, and he thought for some reason I might know. In Spanish, is there any way that people can use non-binary pronouns, right? Because Spanish has the whole, very gendered facet of the language itself. Are there ways that people do that to use a they them pronoun? Because everything, the whole language is, and verbs and stuff exist within this, everything, right? That's something I've been curious about, partially because my dad asked me, but also just because I wanted to know. Fuck yeah, transition. This poem is about transition moment. Man, aw. And you've already given this to them. That's so beautiful. I hope they really liked it. This is just so kind and so sweet, Ray. Yeah, I don't know. That's being a good friend. That's fucking dope. Yeah, no. If I was given this, I would cry, That's so sweet. That's awesome. Anyway, um I think I've said my piece about this piece. Said my pieces. uh does anyone have any questions, comments? Questions for Ray, questions for me, questions for chat, comments in any of those directions or from any of those beings, uh, or just snaps, because this poem is deserving of such things. World needs more peace. Yeah, yeah. Um, Such a peaceful, beautiful poem. Um, yeah, I think if everyone was able to write poetry like this, or desired to, right, to create peaceful things reverent of life, uh, we'd have much less conflict, but I think people aren't interested in revering life predominantly. We revere things like wealth and religion. So, hate. Anyway, um, we revere identities that separate us from each other. Yeah, lovely, lovely, lovely poem. Lovely, lovely. So, ah, man. Man, I kind of wanted you to read What of, but I feel like it would be such a downer after that. I don't think we can find such a correlation. Perhaps, but it's intuitive to me. Um, no one told them which path to follow. There is, in the darkest heart, a small creature whom winter gently persuades. They fold their trembling beneath the moss, lower their head upon the earth's dim warmth, and surrender their eyelids to the slow ministry of sleep. The frosts enamel the branches with a goldsmith's patience. Water polishes the stones. The roots blind and steadfast continue their silent pilgrimage into the depths. Lichens write upon the bark of old trees. The little creature knows nothing of these ceremonies, nor do they know whether the forest has forgotten them. They sleep, for there is a kind of weariness that asks only for rest. And yet, when the snow withdraws, with the discretion of an old guest, the forest seems to breathe in another way. A tiny creature returns to the place that has always belonged to them. The whole forest blossomed with their return. No one told them which path to follow. I have like one piece of critique, and it's so nitpicky. Um, but it is the roots blind and steadfast. All I want is it for to be the roots steadfast and blind. Um, because I read it as the roots blind, as in a verb to blind, and steadfast first would alleviate that problem, I think, automatically. But maybe that's just a problem in my own mind of reading it. Thank you so much, Ray, for submitting this poem and for waiting so long. I feel like I read your stuff at extremely distant intervals. And you stick around and you're always here. And yeah, and you're just very chill and not very pushy about me reading your work. And when I read it, I remember that your work is fucking incredible and I should be reading more of it. Uh, but thank you. Thank you so much. This stream does not work without you all sending me your work. And I cherish the opportunity to have a chance to read it. Gracias de nada. And likewise, gracias. I feel like, are there other sentiments of like thank you in Spanish? Like what's like a my pleasure? You know, is there like a more like a extra sincere thank you in Spanish? Or is right? Because like in English we have thank you and we have no problem and we have of course and we have my pleasure. and all of these ways to thank. Muchos gracias. Muchas, mucho gusto. You can add muchas to anything. Then muchas gracias. Oh wait, no, but I oh no. Wait, there's like but I mean for sorry, for you're welcome, right? That's what I meant. Because we have gracias and I say de nada, right? And that's like of course or something like that. I don't know what the feeling of that word is. I just know is someone says gracias and you say de nada. Is there another version of de nada? That's what I meant to say. Um, right, no problema is like no problem, like but there's no I don't want to add the notion of problem to my thank you. That's why I don't like no problem because it's like, well, that means like what? It could be a problem. See, I don't like that one. Uh, go like Gustavo Cerati in that one concert. Gracias totales, like all of the thank yous. Con gusto. What does con gusto mean in like translated to an English person or a English speaker? This poem was an absolute pleasure to read, to listen to. See, yeah, that's the yeah, so you say thank you and I want to say like my pleasure. Doesn't gusto mean taste? Like gustar has this like liking to like. Thank you, no problem. We're about to have a problem if you don't accept my thank you. Right. I think like it's interesting, right? How we accept thank you. And I like my pleasure. I want the Spanish equivalent of my pleasure. Right? That's what I want. And if that's de nada and that's the sentiment, okay, con gusto is with pleasure, so my pleasure. Is that accurate, Ray? Are there other ways to say this? I'm really asking you because you're a native Spanish speaker. More than you can go un gusto, so a pleasure. It was a pleasure. Gotcha. Is that more correct than con gusto? In at least your Chilean dialect of Spanish, because I know they're all a little different culturally. Okay. Well, un gusto. To read your work. Why is my Spanish never recognized? You didn't say anything. you didn't say anything, unless you did, and I just have been conditioned. Oh, you said mucho gusto. I think I read that. I don't know. Mucho gusto versus un gusto. We have way more curses in Chile than nice words. I guess that's fair, right? I guess that's fair. Teach us your favorite. Yeah, that's a good idea. Although we are going to have a brief break, and I guess if you want during that time, Ray, you can teach chat your favorite Chilean curses. But I would encourage you all to stand up, to look away from the screen, to stretch. I think the other day someone said to like unshrimp, or like de-shrimp your back. Maybe that was Be Thou Wrecked or something. That was like my favorite thing ever. So do those kinds of things, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back. Good morning again. um, Ray, you say if you ever need to go absolutely Xbox mic on someone in Spanish, say, I'm your guy. What is, why does I'm your guy, why, what, how does that work? uh, Stepdad used to say, cállate cabrona. Doesn't that mean shut up, bitch? To me, on the regular, that's insane. That's, yeah, bruh, right? Um, no, as in, I'm your guy to teach you and shit. What do you mean? What do you mean? I'm your what do you need to go? Oh. You're my guy. You will instruct me on how to go Xbox mic on someone in Spanish. Well, go ahead, teach us. um Anyway, you're turning heads when you walk through the door. Don't need makeup to cover up. Everyone else in the room can see it. Everyone else but you. Ooh ooh. That's nice. That's nice, Callie. Got some bars. The do, right? I like the do. I bet if someone sang it better, it would sound good. Surprised I turned out with such a cheery disposition. Yeah, I feel like uh, uh, it's crazy. um, uh, I see. Need to go Xbox mic on someone. I'm your guy. I said I'm your top. It could be. Lurking while on my break at work. Well, welcome in. Thank you for coming in and lurking, Fire Writer. A member of the hypothetical messier book club. So excited for it. Sometimes he felt extra loving. He would add pinche. Yeah. Um, yeah. If you need someone to riz up femboys, I'm here. That's crazy. I'll do it myself, though. I'll do it myself. Been watching Chilean movies. Holy shit, we spoke way different back in the day. What has changed in Chilean speech? Has it gotten? Did they used to curse less, more, something different? Haha, I just realized you added language slut to the sign. Yes, language slut is on the sign. Um, and there is a point redeem in the point redeems for 20,000 points. I know. I have to give people something to save up to because I think some of y'all have like tens of thousands. To put a message on the sign. It has to be appropriate. It has to be able to go on my YouTube channel. I think language slut is already like towing the line for that. Um, can't be a self shout out. I know. Um, and yeah, can't be crass, overly crass, no worse than language slut, and cannot be a shout out to yourself. I mean, it could be like a Nikki was here, but not like your socials or whatever. Um, I suppose is what I'll say. You're almost out of points, Callie, because you've been using me next. Oh wow, you've redeemed like uh uh the last 6 point redeems in a row have been Callie redeeming me next. I'm glad we're making good use of that redeem. I'd like to respectfully request a potential reading of my poem. When was the last time we read anything of yours? Um, we used to curse a lot less. Like everyone sounded like a history professor. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, like I guess Chile had that whole literary generation of like fucking geniuses, right? Uh, So I guess maybe y'all have that rich moment of literary history. I don't know. Thought my dog got out and just spent who knows how long calling him. He was in the office the whole time. I missed everything. That's so tragic. I'm glad he's safe though, and he's in the office. That is good. My first day on stream was the last time you read, but I'm in no hurry. And what did I read? I read was yours the Seasons poem? That was genuinely like a month ago. It was way before the last thing we read from Callie. Callie was actually relatively recently in the grander scheme of things. And I know that's not what Callie wants to hear, but uh and I was talking about Nikki, oh, and Ishmael too. But Ishmael was even more recent than Nikki. Um so there's that. The dog must be quiet if it could just become invisible in the office, I guess. Two generations in a row of great literature. Yeah, I mean that's rare enough in its own right. Uh, he called him so much, and the door was in a way he couldn't push it, so he never responded. That's He's behind the door, and he's like, "Why are they yelling at me? I can't get through." I would like to be read, and I'm nice about it. So yeah, reward me. You are fairly nice about it, Callie, but I think like it has genuinely been like more than a month since I've read Be Thou Wrecked. And I think that means Be Thou Wrecked is sending me poetry. And I'm still in a poetry mood. Um, Now, I could become in a prose mood after that. I think that's often the trajectory stream takes of like once we go to prose, we can't go back, is how I feel sometimes because it's a shift. Uh, but I have lots of energy, I think, because I started out this stream half asleep, which means the first portion of stream was actually just me waking up, right? It was just me waking up for an hour and 49 minutes and being just gently pulled into wakefulness by Ray's poem. Lovely way to start the day. Uh, to be pulled into wakefulness by poetry. Yeah. Um, which means I'm like just now awake and just starting to have energy. So we could definitely read three things today. It's funny on my YouTube video that I put up, I was like, I think I'm gonna read like three poems in this video, and then I did one, and I'm like, man, I need to like figure out how to edit this, and that like took so much energy out of me because it was different. So then the intro, I say like, yeah, we're gonna read like three poems, and then I do one, and then there's the outro, and I'm like, yeah, man, that was a lie. I totally could have re-recorded the intro, and just chose not to. Anyway, uh, let's read Be Thou Wrecked's poem, To the Weed Growing in the Sidewalk, which is a lovely title. Once you go prose, you can't propose. Bar. Fractured verse poem. Fractured. Fractured like the crack in the sidewalk, perhaps. Fractured is an interesting word. I like it. That sounds like something like someone would call like an actual genre. They'd be like, yeah, this is my new genre. It's called fracture poetry. You know, in the same way that we have concrete poetry. Sidewalk? Concrete? Weed growing through? Fracture? Full circle. Crazy. I fractured my tibia. Tough. I have fractured in my life one bone. I fractured the fourth metatarsal in my... Which foot was it? Which foot was in the boot? My left foot, I think. And so the foot, right? If we have a foot, it's not a bad foot, right? And then we have like some toes here, right? Um, you have like the tarsals, and then they're like by the toes, or they are the toes or something. And then you have like these bones in here, and those are like the metatarsals. So I did the fourth one, which was like the equivalent of my ring finger toe on my left foot. So this, if we inverted this, because I think this is the big toe here. Anyway, that is the one bone I fractured, and I broke it, right? I broke it at soccer practice. Some kid stepped on my foot, which sucked. And then I re-injured the foot at least 3 times. So I ended up being in this like walking boot for like an entire school year. Like, because soccer was in the fall, right? And I broke this foot. I remember I started the cross country season too. This is in middle school. And then I had to stop. I never really played sports after this because I just never really got back into it. I was very like not fit after that. And then I switched schools and we moved states. Cross country, it's running, like distance running on like trails usually. And I still like to run now again. So I broke this foot in soccer practice, and this was in like September probably. And then I'd say by like November, it was healed. At which point I'm sitting on the sofa, okay? And the sofa has like a foot, like an armrest, right? And then you have like the back of the sofa and an armrest, and then like the bottom of the sofa, right? This is a sofa. And I'm sitting where I'm like, where my feet are sort of like to the side of me, right? My feet are here. But one foot is up, my left foot, just like this, on the armrest because I'm like weird and hypermobile. Not hypermobile, but I'm very mobile. So my foot is propped up on the thing, and my other foot is here, and I'm just sort of sitting vertically like this because I'm weird as fuck. I just sit weird. My dad comes over and decides he's going to sit right here, not seeing that my legs are to the side. So then, like, he sits on my calf, ankle goes that way, fucks up my foot again, right? So then we're back in the boot from, like, October to January, right? Then literally the same thing happens at my friend's house. I'm like over at my friend's house. We're watching a movie. We're watching Airplane. Great movie. I'm sitting with my feet to the side again because I'm an idiot and I don't learn my lesson. Back in the boot for another month. That one was less bad because it wasn't propped up on an armrest. It was just on the sofa. So Josie just kind of sat down on my foot. And I was like, ow. Anyway, so then we're hurt until February. Right? And then I get better probably in February or March, and me and my dad go and we like play catch in the park. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can run. The foot has been better for like 2 weeks. And then while we're playing catch, I step on a baseball that's like buried in the dirt halfway and like roll my ankle over it and like just collapse to the ground. And I'm hurt for like another 2 months until like April or May or something. And then it's like the end of the school year, right? If it's like, April, May, June. So like genuinely like injured for 9 months or like 8 months. It was horrible. And by the end of this ordeal, right? Um, Literally, I took my foot out of the boot at the very end of this, and it was like atrophied, you know, like because the muscular atrophy, you're just not using the muscles in the foot, so it was like noticeably smaller than my other foot. And so then I was like going back to like physical therapy. I was doing physical therapy like through this whole time basically, and I kept re-injuring it. Went to this like physical therapy place on like Thursday nights, uh, and it was nice. They had me like pushing it against a band, and that was good. Now my feet and ankles are very strong and stuff because I rock climb and run and slackline and stuff. So better. That's my broken bone ordeal story. Otherwise, no issues. And this is why you sit by yourself and stream to Twitch. It all makes sense now. Yeah, I guess I have a internalized Freudian fear of people sitting on my feet, and that is where all of my social anxiety emerges from. The only sport I ever practiced by my own accord was tennis and ping pong. I kind of just like did sports as a kid cuz like I guess I always had like I was playing soccer before I had a choice to do things, you know? Same with baseball. It was like a really big deal for me when I told my dad. I remember I was on like the verge of tears, and I'm like, I don't want to play baseball. I don't want to play. Right. This was in like eighth grade. Um, so I'm like 14 or whatever. Because I'm like, I'm not good enough to play in high school. You know, I'm like barely even like good enough at throwing to probably like make the team. And it's because like for most of my life, like up to that point, like I never really chose anything. It was like I had played baseball because I always played baseball, and I played soccer because I'd always played soccer. Um, and so to be like, I don't want to do this thing actually, was like this terrifying experience for me. Because everything was just assumed, right? And it's taken me a long time. It took me a long time after that, only until like I mean, I think even in the last 6 months to really understand like the degree of choice and the degree of freedom that I have as a human to like do things. Uh, yeah, agency. It's a beautiful thing. For a long time, I craved non-agency because I think it's what I knew, and I wanted to be a Buddhist, or I wanted to attain Buddhist enlightenment because then I would never have to choose a thing for the rest of my life and I would be content. And I realized that doesn't fucking work. Um, never broken a bone, only my heart. I've only broken other people's hearts. Hayden heart. And my gallbladder, but that's another story. That's sounds like an unpleasant thing to break. Um, oh no, oh shit, oh god, yeah. um, is this a message that people should watch where they sit? Maybe. Call me a footballer the way my foot got me balled up in the ER. Yep, yep. Worst break was sliding with my big toe tucked under my foot with all my weight on that toe. Ugh. Yeah, yeah. All your weight onto a big toe is not good. Can't remember where I heard something similar. Dad accidentally breaks his kid's arm. They go to the hospital, and the kid's like, "My dad broke my arm," just without thinking about it. And everyone looks at the dad like you're a monster. Yeah, yeah. I still hold it over my dad sometimes for sure. Uh, the solution, of course, is two boots and a lifetime of tiny feet. If you just immobilize the feet forever, you'll have these like very dainty, soft, untouched by the terrors of the world kind of feet. Um, it'll, you know, that's great. Um, that's, you know, I feel like if one was like femboy maxing and wanted to have like little delicate feet, that's what you would do. That's like I know there was like the foot binding thing in like maybe in China during certain periods, right? Where they'd take the feet and like cram them into these tiny shoes and stuff, and they'd be all like weird shaped. Or maybe Japan. I'm not sure. Um, I'm not going to say what the worst thing that happened to me unless someone asks. Or if no one cares. I'm saying it anyway out of spite. What if people ask but don't care? Ugh, brutal. I've fallen on an electric heater. Worst pain. Ugh, yeah. That sounds like a lot. You break Callie's heart all the time by not picking them. That's my job. How do you know my pronouns? Oh, by not picking them. I see. I never revealed them. I meant acquiesce to a lifetime of tiny feet. Not tiny feet as a goal, just symmetry. Well, you know. Lotus foot, Imperial China. China was the one that did the foot thing. Gotcha. Yeah, that's interesting for sure. Not great. There's also like the people that do like the neck stuff, right? And extend the necks. And there's the head binding to get the flat skulls. Those sort of extreme body modification. I mean, corsets even, and this like waist training kind of stuff. There are lots of things like that. Even like some of the things with hair, like having like a braid or like locks that you never cut or a beard that you never cut. Of course, there's all like the piercing and the super stretched lobes. I stretch my lobes, and that's as extreme as I get. I could never. I would not do that. That's not my thing. We read Good Earth in high school. Looking at the pictures was brutal. What is Good Earth? Good Earth. Paste. Historical fiction novel by Pearl S. Buck. This one? I feel like I'm wandering into something terrifying. Early 20th century Chinese village in Anhui, or Anhui, in Pinyin. First book in a trilogy. Good Earth, House Divided. Oh, won a Pulitzer Prize for fiction. I've heard that one's a big deal. Oh, helped win a Nobel Prize for Literature. Also a big deal. Yeah. Yeah. And it was in Oprah Winfrey's book club. Perhaps the biggest deal of all. So this is probably like an epic saga of family and stuff and poverty and wealth and politics. Yeah, there's probably a lot. We're not going to read the whole thing. The Good Earth was about China, and there was a concubine in the story with bound feet. Gotcha. So then you looked it up to understand the work. Makes sense. Okay. Let's read a poem. The wife has a baby in rice fields and keeps harvesting. She was a badass. Sounds like it. Tougher than me. Let's read To the Weed Growing in the Sidewalk, since we've been talking now for 20 minutes with it on screen, probably. To the weed growing in the sidewalk. Hell yeah. You grow, girl. Take back your territory. Unravel our monochrome concrete monarchy. I would gladly walk on thorns for your yellow-orange theorems. Send my distress call to Mother Earth. I can't breathe profits. Shareholders won't share. This toxic rainfall. Capital doesn't trickle down. Only piss does. Stings my pores. Our water burns. The clouds are fake. Without you, the only way to see stars would be hitting my head. Let me plant myself in a crack beside you, learning resilience where I should not exist. And when they send law enforcements, we will turn weed killers into kaleidoscopes. Another poem in a very different way, right, as the one before, that appreciates nature. I also didn't ask you, Be Thou Wrecked, if you had any like questions, so you know the drill. Appreciates nature, right? And in this way, right, it is nature as sort of a battle, and there's a conflict here, right? We're discussing distress calls and territory and monarchy, thorns. We're talking about, all of this awful modern industrial existence, right? We are talking about resilience, law enforcement. I read it as law enforcement. That's ah. That's really good. And we will turn weed killers into kaleidoscopes, of course, back to the seeing of stars. Uh Lovely. Lovely. Yellow orange. Maybe we're talking about a dandelion. Although they're just yellow. They're kind of orangey if you look at them right. Could be another thing. They don't have thorns though. I guess it's not your thorns. They are kind of sharp, right? Dandelion. Lion's teeth. I love how chaotic it feels. It definitely does feel chaotic, right? We are shifting in tone, right? And I think I do like, in retrospect, the way I read the opening. Hell yeah, you grow, girl, right? Go, girl. Take back, right? Take back the patriarchy or whatever. Uh, Hell yeah, you grow, girl. Take back your territory. Unravel our monochrome concrete monarchy. I would gladly walk on thorns. And we like somehow get to this like rather sincere, like I would gladly walk on thorns for your yellow orange theorems. And it's quite the shift, right? And then we're like, I send my distress call to Mother Earth. I can't breathe profits. Shareholders won't share. This toxic rainfall. And then we're like, bam, capital doesn't trickle down, only piss does, right? We're like inserting these jokes, inserting these funny things kind of like within something very painful, right? Within suffering. And this is one of those ways, right, that we cope, and also a lovely way to approach things that have more pain in them, right? It's easy enough to get by just talking about beauty when there is beauty self-contained. But when we're talking about suffering, right, a wonderful way to manage that is to come up for air, right? And these things allow us to breathe. I can't breathe profits, but I can breathe jokes, right? Before plunging back into stings my pores. Our water burns. The clouds are fake. And even like the clouds are fake is another one of these like funny things, this implication of I mean, whether it's because they're toxic water or because of like weather control or something, right? The sort of conspiratorial mind for that one, maybe. Either way, a funny line. Yeah, birds aren't real. The Democrats are controlling the weather. yeah, the Earth is flat. All the things we hear about on a regular basis in American politics, right? Are you from America, be thou wrecked? I suppose it doesn't much matter. I think you are. Um, yeah, I don't know. You don't actually have to say. Um, but context. Anyway, so we have this sort of suffering and then this humor that play into each other. And then right, we come back to like sincerity. Let me plant myself in a crack beside you, learning resilience where I should not exist. Right, and I love this. And when they send lawn enforcement, we will turn weed killers into kaleidoscopes, right? Because then it says, like, as much as the weed does not exist in the concrete, I do not, or I should not exist, right, in this society. Uh, and I mean, clouds are fake is more a reference to industrial smog. That makes sense. Um, I should not exist in this society, right? This world is hostile. I mean, to keep using America, right? Law enforcement. We have like ICE, like fucking deporting people. And I really like this is where my mind goes to this poem, right? Something that is trying its best to grow in a hostile place, that is called a weed, called something parasitic and to be removed. Uh, Makes me think certainly of the we'll say illegal immigrant in in America, right? Growing, thriving, trying to function, right? As law enforcement comes trying to eradicate them. Of course, that could be anyone trying to thrive in a situation like that, right? And I think this goes for, I mean, any minority group in America, or like people in Palestine, or, Ukraine, or wherever in the world that where people are being persecuted. Uh, Yeah, it's and so it says, right, that this sort of capitalist, you know, late consumer society is just fundamentally hostile to life. Like really the living are weeds. I mean, yeah, so I mean we can almost like draw out the metaphor very clearly. Oh yeah, there's a foot over here. Um, right, there is concrete, and then in spite of that, right, there is life. And in the same way, sort of as the thing with like the forest before, right, we have life as me and life as the weed, right? And then we have capital, right? So then capital is the concrete. Capital is the hard, unsupportive, uh, it's like industry, it's like brutal, it's smooth and proper. It is, all of these things. And then life fundamentally exists sort of in spite of that. And I think a world, I mean, we're particularly seeing in the modern day, a world that is ideal for capital is not a world with life, right? Because I think what we've learned in our plunging into a capitalist world is that humans don't like to be shackled, right? Shackled, yes, monochrome, another way to describe this. shackled by capital, right? I guess some of them do, right? If they can be the ones holding the shackles of others or whatever. I hate to use shackled. It makes me sound too Marxist. I'm not a Marxist. But uh, life does not agree, right, with capital, and living things do not agree with capitalism, or most, right? Because it's something for the few, and we see it even in the modern day with like people like Peter Thiel, uh, who these people genuinely want like technological ascension, right? I mean, this is probably the primary goal of the uber wealthy in the world, in America, is to transcend and become like techno gods. I mean, that's literally what Peter Thiel talks about and whatever. Um, but it just generally, I think the goal of those in power and in capital is to remove themselves from the living and remove themselves from like those who have to struggle. Uh, just be rich. It's easy. Uh, yeah, insert quote about poor people being lazy. Yeah, you've got bootstraps. Pull on them. um, so it literally wants to end life, right? I mean, there are like the billionaires who talk about like wanting like a reset and to like get rid of a bunch of people. Like, oh, we should just go to a world with like 1 million people and then it'll be fine, you know? I did that, I only fell on my face. Yeah, pull harder. So I think in a very modern world, right? Uh, this is the reality. Um, I think it's sort of sad, this poem. I mean, yeah, it's a sad poem, and the humor tries, but like, take back your territory, unravel our monochrome concrete monarchy, and like, in the end, if we zoom out from this picture of this weed growing in the sidewalk, right? The sidewalk goes on for miles and miles, and the road goes on for miles and miles and miles, and the highway cuts through the desert, and predominantly, and the forests are being clear cut, and the animals are dying. Think of the animals, right? Um, and the turtles are eating bottle caps or whatever. Um, and like, it's sort of sad, right? That like the victories we win in this world are small ones. But at the same time, the victories that we win are the victories of life, right? They are the victories of color. They are the victories of the kaleidoscope of the beauty that we like still hold on to in this life of toxic things and fake things and distress. Um, Sort of in our human, you know, madness, our appreciation for life and beauty and nature and all of these things. Uh, which, you know, is sad. I think there's an interesting aspect to this poem of let me plant myself in a crack behind you, beside you. Because this says like I am not, like the speaker in some way is maybe at least at the time like somewhat insulated, I think, in this poem from the immediate oppression of society, is how I read this. Maybe that's because that's predominantly how I am, fairly insulated by capital, by, we'll say, generational wealth of that I live with my parents. Uh, and like one only truly learns that resilience by having to struggle against that system. So right, let me be beside you, let me like fight this thing and try. um but I think the reality is that most people won't do this, right? um Most people don't. Yeah, the speaker could be coming to a personal awakening of the importance of solidarity. Yeah. And I think that is good, right? This solidarity with the weed. um and most people don't have that awakening. I think they're like, so long as they're insulated, so long as they are safe themselves, right, the solidarity doesn't occur, and it doesn't occur until they themselves are threatened. This is that poem, right? The they came for the whatever and I said nothing, they came for whatever and I said nothing, uh and then eventually they come for me and there's no one left to whatever, right? Um, yeah, that's so I like this poem, right? As that personal realization, this desire to plant oneself next to those who are in a space where they must grow within concrete. Uh, Man, it's very sad. It just makes me think how the world sucks. Um, and when they send law and enforcement, we will turn weed killers into kaleidoscopes. Uh, So there's this seeing stars thing, right? The only way to see stars would be hitting my head because like you can't see stars with like the light pollution and like the world, and you can't see that sort of like I think there's like a number of things, right? There's like the wonder of nature in just like seeing stars, right? As like being starstruck and beauty, but also the fact of like in nature one can still see stars away from like light polluted cities where like you can't see any stars where I live basically because we have a giant spotlight that shoots into the sky from a glass pyramid. I love this place. Um, Without hitting my head. And we will turn weed killers into kaleidoscopes, all right? We'll make them see stars. And I like how this can be a number of things to either hit them on the head, make them see stars, but also maybe to like convert them to see the wonder and the beauty of life, right? And to you know show them their wrong ways and in our resistance. Uh, and it's hard because like that is what must be done, and then at the same time it's easy to think about all this stuff and feel hopeless, right? uh and the humor lightens it, but the humor also just makes it like, man, like all I can do is laugh about this. um and that's tragic in its own way. um It's an interesting poem in its kind of twists and turns, right? Damn, I thought this poem was sort of optimistic. Well, the poem is optimistic, right? They will send law enforcement, so we will turn weed killers into kaleidoscopes. We get solidarity, we get resistance, we are here together in the concrete. But then there's the fact of like, you remember that being here together in the concrete and solidarity is solidarity against something. Like, it's just I maybe it's me, right, that I think from a practical perspective, um like the problems of the world are so massive, um and I am left doubting, so often. what even like a large and organized community can do against that. Um, when we're like so consistently like propagandized uh, and you just see things kind of get stamped down and stamped out, and like the persistence of like social media and like resistance is a trend that comes and goes, and uh yeah, I don't know. Every time I see a surveillance camera, a new one popping up in my city, the flock cameras, right? Um, yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Why does this concrete exist at all? Yeah. Flock the police, yeah. Um, so it's hard, right? It's hard to exist in between those spaces. I think I mean, it's a monumental task, I think, to write a an optimistic political poem in the current time that doesn't feel like sort of delusional, or that it's like trying so hard to be like hope core. Um, and I think to me, what this leaves me feeling is like the pain is there and the world sucks, and so we will have our beauty together and we will laugh together, uh, you know, and we will resist. But if there is a victory offered by this poem, it's a small one to me, right? And a personal one and an immediate one. Uh, yeah, it's hard. Political poetry, I shy away from political poetry, political art, because of this line, right? Because of the ease with which it can just depress people. And frankly, I'm not interested in creating art that might be depressing, right? Or creating art that might be depressing. And it's not that depressing art is bad, right? I think this is still an enjoyable thing, and it makes me feel something, and it reminds me of pain, and it's difficult and agonizing and whatever, right? No, 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 no. I mean, like, you don't need to apologize, right? Like, some art dampens the vibe, and that's like a reality we have to face. I think the interesting thing that comes from that is like a question of how we write political poetry and political art. Because really, if all we were doing as artists, right, was, let's say, writing depressing political stuff, right, then this would be like, that it would just feel like there's no escape. Like every poem we're reading is like crushing. But if all we were writing was poems that are like beautiful and nice, then um, there's like a delusion in that as well. So, and maybe that's the lovely thing about being human and having style, right? Is that you are more willing to approach the political, and Ray, sends something very earnest, and like in that the variety is like needed, right? And that's how we live. We live as a reminder that there is beauty, and like, right, there is beauty even in this suffering and in the sort of depressingness of it, and that's good, right? Um, and this poem, maybe more than anything, reminds us of beauty in the concrete. Um, And that is an optimistic thing about this poem, right? That we find beauty and we even create beauty of this reality. So that is a nice thing. Yeah. um Anyone have questions? Thoughts? It is, I will say, it is like quite the tonal whiplash, right, from this to this. And sometimes that happens on stream, and that is the very difficult thing about, reading many pieces of art, just like anything anyone can submit, right? Um, where we keep depressing Ginny with ecological writing. Yeah, and it doesn't help that I just read Braiding Sweetgrass, and then I do have like a deep amount of compassion for the natural world. And now I'm reading Desert Solitaire by Edward Abbey, which is a memorial to the loss of pure and beautiful natural places in America. Um, so like, it's on my mind, right? Mm, and yeah, it's sad. uh, yeah. Any questions or comments about this work or about anything I've said, or any comments and those kinds of things? Art as an escape is totally valid, as is art as a megaphone. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Absolutely, right? Uh, and it's hard. I think the tricky thing about art as a megaphone is we would like to use our megaphone to inspire something that, gets people to like act, right? And Nikki found it uplifting, right? And I found it down, and not everyone reacts the same to a poem. And I think the tricky thing about political art for me is political art often feels like it has a motive and it has an incentive. And that is something I don't like in my art, right? I like for my art to be a self justified expression of things, right? Um, and maybe that's why I don't write political things. But I think I could write something that is just a picture of the world and of politics that isn't looking to uplift and not looking to bring down, but just looking to, like, I'm a very descriptive person in my art. I just talk about what is, I guess. But the poem was basically written in like 10 minutes while I was out walking. It's good work for a 10-minute poem. I do really, it is enjoyable. It's just one of those things that for me is hard to read, and that's okay, right? We need to be challenged, and we need to grapple with realities. It's important. So thank you, and I'll read it again because it sounds like there aren't any questions or stuff. Let me check though. It's making me think of that American Beauty scene with the dancing plastic bag. More media Imogen doesn't know. um, Thanks for reading it despite the contextual pain. Absolutely, and thank you so much for sending it. I do appreciate it. I think we could appreciate, the fact of something that makes us hurt. And I think, you know, if your poem is making someone feel something, that's good. To the weed growing in the sidewalk. Hell yeah. You grow, girl. Take back your territory. Unravel our monochrome concrete monarchy. I would gladly walk on thorns for your yellow-orange theorems. Send my distress call to Mother Earth. I can't breathe profits. Shareholders won't share. This toxic rainfall. Capital doesn't trickle down, only piss does. Stings my pores. Our water burns. The clouds are fake. Without you, the only way to see stars would be by hitting my head. Let me plant myself in a crack beside you, learning resilience where I should not exist. And when they send law enforcement, we'll turn weed killers into kaleidoscopes. To the weed growing in the sidewalk. Thank you. Thank you, Be Thou Wrecked, for sending the poem. Thank you for giving me and others the opportunity to feel things through your art. You know, that is certainly something we can do, even when things are sad and tough, is feel. And yes, stream cannot occur, this cannot occur without you all sending your things, so I read them with deep gratitude. The way you read poetry really elevates the poem, which is why we're all so desperate to have our things read. Yeah, I mean, I want to read it in the best way I can for the poem, right? I want to give every poem the best chance it can to say the things it wants to say through me. I think it would be inconsiderate of me to not read it well, to not give every poem a chance. And I see the things you didn't even know you're meant to say. Yeah. I do, it seems. Yes, thank you, Be That Wrecked. Dude was showing a home movie of a plastic bag blowing in the wind, and the quote was, "It was one of those days when it's a minute away from snowing and there's this electricity in the air and you can almost hear it, and this bag was just dancing with me like a little kid, begging me to play with it for 15 minutes. Sometimes there's so much beauty in the world. I feel I can't take it. It's like my heart is just going to cave in." What the heck? That's so beautiful. What is this in? You said American Beauty? I mean, like that, I don't know, that line is sort of like tearing up reading it. And maybe it's the context of having read that poem before that's contributing. But this is a movie? And then within the movie, the guy is showing a home movie? It's a very Lolita adjacent style film. Well, that sounds less good. I mean, I like Lolita though as a story. I see. Comedy drama. Psychological, wait, black comedy and psychological. Okay, I see. Directed by Sam Mendes in his feature directorial debut. Advertising executive who has a midlife crisis when he becomes infatuated with his teenage daughter's best friend. Interesting. Satirizing beauty and personal dissatisfaction are perceived by the American middle class. Further analysis. Oh, I feel like I should watch this. Second best reviewed film behind Being John Malkovich. I need to watch this one too. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. budget $15 million grossed. That did a good thing for capital. Um, cool. That sounds neat. I like things that think about beauty because I think about beauty a lot. Is this the movie with hypnosis? Oh God. We are gonna take a break. Try to move your body. Get the blood moving. Unshrimp the back. Because I guess you read a downer, and you gotta get yourself back up to function. So I don't know. Do some jumping jacks. And we'll be back in just a few minutes. Yeah. Howdy. Have a work meeting now. Enjoy your lurk. Be thou wrecked. Thank you for coming by. I went to see Santa Sangre, question mark, Ray. No, I'm going to see it at the end of the month. I'm seeing it in a couple weeks on Thursday. And then also in a couple weeks, there will be no streams from Friday the 31st to until probably Friday the 7th. I think I'll resume on Friday the 7th. I'll be taking a whole week off from streams at the start of August / last day of July. That is because I'm visiting California to go play D&D for 5 days straight with my closest group of friends. And then to spend a couple days, or at least a full day, at the San Francisco Public Library doing research for a potential um, research for a potential poetry collection, uh, which would be my project for the fellowship that I want to do at Stanford. Uh, yeah, and it would be some time to decompress. You're experiencing withdrawals already. This is how you give people withdrawals. Then you'll just come back with a deeper desire for my content. Um, I would say that I could do something like record YouTube videos and schedule them to go up during that time, but that seems very ambitious. Although that would be like a smart money move for me to make for sure. Um, if I were to do something like that, record a few artistic rambles and such, and then I'd be able to, you know, keep the viewers engaged or whatever. Um, yeah. You're ahead of the game, Callie. Yeah, you are. Always ahead of the game. That sounds like the start of a bar. You can turn that into something and send it in chat, and then I'll maybe read it. Maybe I won't to heighten the withdrawal. What a day. I've almost got through my first water bottle of the day. It's good. Good to drink water. Although it's not super hot today in Vegas. We're having some monsoon season clouds come in. But that means it's like very humid, much more humid than usual. So it's kind of a suffering. Big ass water bottle, yeah. Big indeed. You like water? I love water. Ishmael, water goes crazy. Um, yeah. Hey, my love poem in Discord is called Monsoon Season. Oh shit. um, I love the idea of monsoon season as a concept, like the idea of there being a rainy season and a dry season, one of these cyclical things, a different way to look at seasonality than like our big four. I think that's good. It was a point where I was world building something with 8 seasons, where we were like cutting seasons in two. I thought that was kind of cool as well. Uh, Although seasons are generally like 2 or 4, because the whole like Earth axis thing, where there is like a very real scientific 4 points of 6, 7 seasons, six. Yeah, exactly right. That's exactly what I was thinking. Um, I'm sorry. Yeah, you should be. You you send such beautiful, earnest, heart wrenching, soul filling poetry, and then you say that in chat. This is the dry season to the monsoon rains of your artistic writing. I'm gonna be so for real with Chat and Callie and Ishmael and Nikki, who all want me to read your poems. I don't think I have another one in me. I think the I've come too far down. Right, this poem had its it's extreme high of beauty, and then it's crashing down of like pain. Not that the pain was any less beautiful, um, but it was, I think it was too much of a swing for my fragile mind to handle. My mind that is oh so familiar with the swings of emotions that my life has filled itself with. Um, so yeah, so yeah, life is miserable and sad because stream is over. um, Man, it's so hard. You guys send me so many things, right? And there's just the reality that I can never get through all of it. And that's beautiful because it means I get to keep doing this like endlessly. And I'm sure, the YouTube will be the same, where I can just always keep reading new exciting stuff and like learning from y'all's poetry and sharing it and reading it in ways that you all like. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Bye. Bye. I'm ahead of the game, never the same. Broke my leg in the race, but I'm back like a horse that's no longer lame. I came, I saw, I came, I take that. I take that. Oh no, I came. Take that how you will. I'm no longer still. My bars bite like dentures that serve the indentured looking for dill. It's pretty killer, Callie. When are you dropping your first single? um Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you all deeply. We are not raiding anywhere today. Stream is just coming to its natural conclusion. Yeah, such a pleasure to read your things. Such a pleasure to share the space and the time and the art. And keep making art you love. Until tomorrow. There's a stream tomorrow. Don't miss me too much. And keep finding beauty in the world. Bye.